Thank you. It's wonderful to see you all. We're going to jump right into it. We've got our first set of speakers here to my left, but we're going to begin with the president of Boise State University, Dr. Marlene Tromp, who's been instrumental to this program from its outset a few years ago. So, Dr. Tromp, please come and give a welcome.
Now, the first thing I want to say is thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this really important process. And I also want to say thank you to Dr. Finstuen. Andrew Finstuen is the person I asked to lead this program, and he has done such a remarkable job. I want to tell you why this program matters so much to me. So I moved to Idaho, and it was the point at which we really began to see such intense division. Now, there were always people who had different perspectives on politics, who had different perspectives on values, but there had begun to be such venom. And I worried that universities weren't doing enough to bring people together in dialogue around these critical issues. That we were actually, as a society, stepping away from disagreement and conflict and not talking with each other. I was so dismayed by it that Greg Carr, who many of you will know, who's a really important Idaho philanthropist, and I were talking on the phone, and he said, "What do you think the answer to it is?" And I said, listening. We don't hear each other, we don't see each other anymore. In fact, we often don't even recognize each other as human if we have different sets of values. Or as one of our first speakers in the Institute for Advancing American Values said, she argued that most of us as Americans share 5 values, but it's really about what order we put them in. We all believe in equality, we all believe in freedom, but depending on how you toggle those two, you might have different policy perspectives. And so it's been very powerful to say, what would it mean for people to come together and listen to each other? I was listening to the radio the other day that was interviewing people in swing states in this incredibly close national election. And they interviewed this man who was a very strong Trump supporter and who was very critical of the positions of the other side. And he went through exactly the arguments that you might imagine. He talked about immigration, he talked about the economy. And then he said, but I just want Americans to be able to talk to each other again. And I think there are so many of us who feel that way, who want to be able to respect each other when we disagree, but want us to be able to talk to each other. The last time we did this program in Caldwell, I told people that one of the first things that my mama taught me when I was growing up was, if you want to be respected, you must treat people with respect. And so this program invites us to see one another as human, even if we disagree. In fact, it began as a seed of a program called Conviction and Conversation in Contested Times. And what we wanted to signal was, people don't have to agree. We're not trying to make people think the same about anything. We're not trying to make people think the things that we think or that some people think. We're not trying to do that. We just want people to be able to hear each other, learn from each other, grow from those conversations, even if what they grow is a stronger commitment to and conviction for their own values. I think that really matters. So we founded the Institute for Advancing American Values, and I put the amazing Dr. Finstuen in charge, and he's brought on some incredible faculty, some fellows in the program who are students and faculty, and we're really trying as a university to be a part of the solution, to be a place where people can talk to each other no matter how strongly they disagree, no matter what their values. And this is our 5th stop in our journey. Now, we've done the program several times on our own campus, but we've been to Idaho Falls, Coeur d'Alene, the Treasure Valley. We've been all over the state. And very often people tell me it's the first time that they felt hope that we will get past a moment where we struggle to see one another. It invites all of us to listen and learn from a variety of perspectives. And we've partnered with Idaho Public Television, and I am so grateful for Idaho Public Television's support. We've partnered with them in making a documentary about this program because we think the entire country needs to know what's happening in Idaho and what we think it means to bring people together as Americans in dialogue. We're so pleased to feature our speakers today, speakers who have different values, the focus of the program, and who have the courage to speak here before all of you. Their assignment was to answer the question, what do you value and why? And the idea behind this was if you begin at the point of values instead of issues, you might see someone better. So we began there. This program is a dream come true for me. I am so proud that in my 35 years of teaching at a university, I've had students say over and over again, I felt like I could have whatever perspective I wanted in your class. And that's our goal for the university. This is a way for us to see each other, to understand the world around us better, to become friends and neighbors again. Many people have worked together to make this program possible, including the folks who are on the staff, but we also have someone who helps people figure out how to articulate their stories. And I'm so grateful for her excellent work on this program every time we do it. We owe also a huge thanks to Greg Carr, because one of the things he believed is that if we could do this program and then people could break bread together in the wake of the conversation and talk with each other around their tables, that there would be something powerful about the act of people eating together. And it is his generosity that has made this program possible. He is a great friend, a very wise man, and someone who has done such good for Idaho. I'm so delighted to let you have the opportunity, even though he's actually out of the country right now, to hear from him before we begin. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm enthused for the launch of Idaho Listens. And thank you, Boise State University. Today I'm going to talk about my hero, my mentor, my role model, my mom, Betty Olson Carr. My mother turned 100 on August 2nd, 2022. Her family, her parents came to Idaho in 1910. Got a little farm near Kimberly. She grew up there. So we're going on 110 years now. Our family loving this state. We like Idaho, we like the people. Now I think my mother embodies the spirit of Idaho Listens. She has what we would all call traditional values: hard work, integrity, help a neighbor, sacrifice for a bigger cause. But on top of that, my mother has curiosity. She loves to learn. She's always reading. She likes to meet new people. She likes conversation. We had all kinds of different folks in our neighborhood, up and down South Holmes Road in Idaho Falls. Different people. My mom liked all of them. She was friends with all of them. My mother didn't believe that you had to agree with someone on every single political point or philosophical idea or lifestyle in order to be their friend, in order to like them. In fact, she took it a step further. If she was in a room of people and somebody said something that wasn't entirely positive about somebody else, she would always say, well, but you know, so-and-so has this good quality. Now, isn't that really the highest aspiration for being a human being, that we can find kindness and compassion for everyone? Now, our neighborhood was vibrant because we had all these different ideas. And why is that a good thing? Why would it be a good thing for Idaho to have an entire mix of people with different views and notions? Well, it means we have that many more solutions available to us as we face a challenge. The United States of America has been the most innovative nation on earth, decade after decade after decade. And why is that? Because we are a collection of people from the entire world that gathered in our country, all of them bringing their different ideas, their different skills, their different solutions to problems, their languages. It's a mashup of creativity that leads to invention, that leads to resilience. There's an example that I enjoy thinking about on the benefits of diversity. And it's the English language itself. People say that English has more than 1 million words in it. Probably more than any other language on earth. How did that happen? Well, the people who spoke English were exploring the whole world. They were curious. They were learning. They were gathering ideas. They were incorporating words, new ways to think about things. I'll use an example. My mom, Betty, is pretty. Now, how many different words can I find in the English language to express the concept of pretty? Well, there'd be hundreds. Now, pretty itself is actually a word that came from Dutch into Middle English many centuries ago. But how else can we describe Betty? She's gorgeous, she's lovely, she's pleasing, she's alluring, she's charming, she's dazzling, she's elegant, she's exquisite, stunning, for sure. She's splendid, she's resplendent, she's angelic, for sure. She's radiant. My mom is pulchritudinous. Okay, I don't really use the word pulchritudinous in my everyday life, but it's from Latin, and it actually means the most beautiful. All right. So what does this mean that we have such a huge vocabulary in English? It means that when we want to express an idea, we can do so with more precision, with more refinement, with more nuance. It's a blessing. So Idaho Listens. We're going to hear from a dozen different people today. I hope they all have vastly different stories to tell. How boring would it be if they all said the same thing and thought the exact same thought? Okay? Everybody's going to be sound asleep in the audience. How boring would my neighborhood have been where I grew up if everybody robotically was repeating the same sentences? What chance would I have had to learn, to expand my mind, to expand my awareness, to imagine what it might be like to be a different human being? Well, I think the evidence is there that my mom's choice of lifestyle and kindness must be a healthy way to live. Because not only did she cross 100, on her 100th birthday, she played pickleball. So let's launch Idaho Listens today. Let's get to know each other. And beyond today, let's keep doing it and build a fabric of friendship in our state.
Well, my name is Andrew Finstu, and Dr. Trump's been generous enough to acknowledge me as part of this program, but of course Greg in his video gives us all inspiration as we get ready to prepare for this Idaho Listens. As Dr. Trump mentioned, the Magic Valley is our 5th stop for this experiment called Idaho Listens. Now, why do I say experiment? Well, speakers from all walks of life who didn't really know one another and don't know you, and they're speaking into an audience for the most part that they don't know, and to an audience that will remain silent. That's something of an experiment. Easy, right? Nothing to it. Actually, imagine their courage when they hear from somebody from Boise State who they've never met or talked to before. I get on the phone with them, hey, I've got an idea for you. Please come join us and speak to an audience, largely of strangers, who will stay silent, and you'll speak about your values to them. Again, easy, right? Nothing to it. Well, universities sometimes do a lot of talking, maybe too much. But Boise State, as a public university, is here to serve the public and to listen to that public. And for a public to engage one another, as Dr. Trump has emphasized, as Greg Carr has emphasized, to humanize the differences that we have in this region and in this state. When we began the program, the question that I received the most often was, how are you going to get the audience to stay silent? And I responded, I'm just going to ask them politely to do so. And from that first program until now, we have not had any interruptions. No clapping or jeering or cheering. We've stayed silent. And in a way, you're all familiar with this convention. You're familiar with the notion of please hold your applause until the end of the program. That's really what we're asking for. And yet there's a novel quality, there's a novel and powerful quality to Idaho Listens. In one of Greg Carr's comments early in the planning, and I've never forgotten it, and we talk about it at every Idaho Listens, he said, what we're looking for is reverent listening. Yes, we are here to listen and to do so silently. But we are not here to stop a smile, a nod, a tear. But please, as much as possible, do so without sound and do so reverently, whether in agreement or disagreement with what's being said. That is the respect that reverence promises. And we promise conversation will follow over a lovely dinner when our program concludes. And as Dr. Trump mentioned, and as the program notes, we have courageous speakers here this evening. They're here to share a slice of that life and the value that shapes it. They couldn't possibly articulate the full scope of their values because we only give them 5 to 7 minutes. Forgot to add that part. Think about that challenge. They got 5 to 7 minutes to speak about what they value and why. That's a daunting task. That's a courageous task. So please join me right now in a round of applause for our speakers this evening. Okay, some housekeeping. Please, first, take out those phones and silence them. Turn them off, put them away. So, the program outlines the order of speakers. As you'll note, we have a first set of speakers. They're seated here to my left, followed by a break, which I will come up at the break and give you a time for what that break will be. And then after the first session, we'll have a chance to return after the break. After we complete the program, the speakers will be served family style. And that was part of Greg's vision as well, because in a family style situation, it forces you at least to say, pass the Brussels sprouts. I'm not sure, Brussels sprouts probably aren't on here. Pass the fingerling potatoes. Gets you talking to one another. Now a couple of words of thanks. First, and Dr. Tromp alluded to our speaker coach, Nancy Buffington, who's over there. She has worked with every single one of our Idaho Listens speakers for the whole duration of the program. Thank you very much, Nancy. You've been such a key partner in this project. Yes, please. The words of our speakers are absolutely their own, but Nancy has been a wonderful part in their preparation. I want to thank two people from this region, Alejandra Hernandez and Justin Vipperman. Where are they? Where's Alejandra? She's over here. And Justin, where's Justin? There he is, Justin. Thank you both. They helped me when we go into communities. We don't want to find who the speakers should be. We ask members of the community. There are others too, but both Justin and Alejandra were key to our lineup of speakers this evening. I also want to thank a crucial partner in this from day one is Senator Mike Crapo's office. Senator Mike Crapo's office has been a supporter of Idaho Listens since we started and provided early input from their conservative perspective. I also want to thank Heather Calkins and Michaela Minsel, who are two of our Boise State staffers who helped put all of this on. Please give them a quick round of applause as well. So Greg's inspiration has challenged us, challenged me, to continue Idaho Listens in some shape or form across the state. We know there are more voices to be heard from different regions around the state, and to weave us together in what Greg finished his video with that wonderful phrase, into a fabric of friendship. Now, I will shortly bring Kara up here to start us off. But there are no formal introductions. You'll note there are no biographies of our speakers in the program because we wanted them to speak for themselves. So after I bring up, the other speakers will follow as they are listed on your program. And after the break, I'll gather everyone's attention and bring Martin up for the second half of, after Martin speaks, then we'll have the break, and then Leah will close us out. So Kara, please take the stage and let the listening begin.
As a child, I remember being obsessed with the facts, what was true and false, right and wrong. The world was very black and white. I remember needing to be the first person to raise my hand in the air when my teachers would ask a question. I needed to be the first one to finish an assignment that the teacher had handed out to the class. I was a little Miss Know-It-All. I would memorize books, movies, and plays, even the production credits of TV shows I watched, just because I could. It wasn't enough that I knew I was smart. I had to make sure other people knew it too. Like a tiger lurking in the jungle grass, I would wait for someone around me to mistake a fact, and then I would pounce. No, you're wrong, and I know the right answer. I don't know why I did those things. It could have been for attention, for the spirit of competition, or maybe because I felt like people valued me more when I knew more. This behavior spanned from kindergarten through high school. Then I went to college. I quickly learned that I was not the smartest person, I didn't have all the answers, and it would be too much work to continue acting like I did, at least academically. But I was insecure. I was a college freshman on my own, no longer surrounded by my group of friends or the teachers who had watched me grow up. With the realization that I no longer knew all the facts, I had to grasp onto something that would allow me to continue feeling the validation I felt as a child, the thing that made me feel important. So, I retreated to what I felt I still knew, that the world was black and white, and that there were things that were right and things that were wrong. I was raised in a conservative Latter-day Saint home, and while I have no memory of my family ever talking about politics, we definitely talked about what was right and wrong. As a young adult in college, I surrounded myself with people who had the same ideas about right and wrong as I did, and I closed myself off to people who supported the things that were wrong to me. Participating in social media made it even easier to get the validation I wanted. The algorithms fed me articles, images, and videos that aligned with my views. My friends would write in support of my memes or rants about hot-button issues of the time, and anyone who dissented could be silenced with the click of a button. I once told someone online that if they wanted to riot in the streets, they deserved to get run over. When they sent me a message asking if I really thought someone who chose to protest in the street should lose their life, I replied, "Yup," and then blocked them from further conversation. The little Miss Know-It-All had become Miss Ignorant. Even when I got a job, all my coworkers seemed to think alike, or at least, if they agreed with me, they said so. If they didn't, they stayed silent. A former boss poked his head into my office one day and said, "It's so cold outside that liberals have their hands in their own pockets." And we laughed and laughed. This cycle of validation worked for me for a long time. It got even worse when I became a stay-at-home mom. For 4 years, I had very little interaction with adults other than my spouse, so it became even easier to be closed off to ideas other than my own. 6 years ago, I rejoined the workforce. I remember being assigned to an office with someone who had views similar to mine, and we would often spend time validating each other. One day, a coworker from another department came to my office while we were discussing something. Though I can't remember the topic, I had just stated my firm opinion on the matter when the visiting coworker looked at me and calmly said, "I don't see it that way." I was taken back and unsure how to respond. Their opinion was a dissension to my own, however, it was calm and polite dissension. It had been so easy in the past to ignore opinions different from mine because they usually came in attack form, caps locks and exclamation marks on a social media post, being called names and made to feel a fool. Messages and phone calls sent to me in the middle of the night accusing me of being what's wrong with this country. But not this time. This opposition was so calm that instead of causing me to bristle, it piqued my curiosity. "How do you see it?" I responded. The coworker proceeded to tell me their opinion, and I thought, "Oh, well, I can see it that way too. But how can that be? How can we disagree, but both be right?" That was a pivotal moment for me. The world became no longer black and white, but nuanced with moral color. I wanted to know how more people saw the world, wanted to see what issues looked like outside my own eyes. It was easy for Miss Ignorant to say all abortions should be banned, but she had never been faced with a situation where she had to choose between her life and the life of her unborn child. I have 6 wonderful, beautiful children, and not once did I have to have a difficult discussion with my doctors where choosing to end the pregnancy was ever mentioned. It seems incredibly unfair to say that I was never faced with any sort of complication with the pregnancies I've had. It was easy for me to say immigrants don't belong in America, but I've never lived in a country where the lives of the people I love were at risk every day, and I've never felt like I wasn't free to believe and be who I am. It was easy for Miss Ignorant to say, as long as you're obeying the law, you have nothing to be afraid of. But I've never faced discrimination because of the color of my skin or my gender. No one has ever looked at me and assumed I was up to no good, except maybe my parents when I was younger. I've also never volunteered to risk my life to keep the peace in my city, county, state, or nation. I've never put my life on the line every day at work or been in a situation where I had to choose between my life and the life of someone else. Though much later in my life than I like, I've started to shed the skin of misignorant and replace it with the clothing of empathy, kindness, and understanding. It's a coat of many colors, but I can only see the whole spectrum when I'm willing to listen and allow others to share with me their view of the world. Because I can't see it all. No one can. As we learn from the New Testament, Jesus actively spent time with those who had views opposed to his. He often showed compassion and love for them, even if they were actively trying to trap him in his own words. If Christ could do it, I know we can. We are meant to be where we are. We have a whole country, a whole world to be a part of if we choose, and we choose Idaho. We are where we are because there are people we are meant to meet, people who are meant to either influence our lives or we are meant to influence theirs. That coworker who offered a dissenting opinion is now one of the most valuable voices in my circle of friends. I believe in being a lifelong learner, in taking any opportunity we can to learn and grow ourselves into something better. This can't happen if our minds are closed to the ideas, suggestions, and stories of those around us. The world would look more colorful if we only let other people into our circle, especially the ones we don't always agree with, and the ones who have lives vastly different than ours. To all of you here tonight, I say, I want to know how you see it. Please tell me more. If I can say that, you can too. Thank you for listening.
My name's Sean. Today I'm going to ask you to use your imagination. Freedom. Can you imagine? Can you imagine growing up in a household where your father was next level kind of alcoholic, the kind of alcoholic that beat you like a grown-up every single day, and you got kicked from one end of the house to the other like a soccer ball? Can you imagine coming home from school every single day and your little body is saturated with terror and fear and resentment, and chaos, as you walked into your door, wondering whether or not that 357 is sitting on that table and is today another day where we play Russian roulette? Can you imagine? Can you imagine the first time somebody comes up to you, one of your little friends, and says, hey, I stole a beer from my dad, and my big brother gave me a joint. And you imagine the first time you take that, and all of a sudden, that monster is just a little bit more quiet. And you can imagine that from that point forward, we're all in on that, because if that silences that chaos, that pain, that monster, if even for a second, well, sign me up. And can you imagine the road to crime that ensues? Because drugs and alcohol aren't free. And can you imagine the state knocking on that door saying, hey, we are tired of the back and forth between detention and all the reports on child abuse. So we're going to go ahead and make you a foster kid. And can you imagine walking into your foster family for the first time thinking, a fresh start? And the first thing you find out is that your foster mom gets high and your dad is an alcoholic. Well, heck, we know this, don't we? Can you imagine that the only thing that pursues that is every single day you're chasing it, that numbness, because you have your own demons to quiet. And so the road to crime just continues. And then 2 years later, the state's knocking on the door. You're 18 now, and you're no longer a ward of the state, and foster care doesn't take care of adults, and you're on your own now, and have a good day. Can you imagine all your clothes in a black trash bag out in the middle of a field, grass up to your chest, and that is your new bed? You wake up, bug bites, cold, nowhere to go, no one to turn to, because you've wore everybody out, especially their couch. And can you imagine the first time somebody says, hey, do you want to be roommates? And you say, well, yeah, because that spells hope. That spells a new start. And can you imagine your best thinking has always got you where you're at? And so, yeah, we know how to fix this problem, because even though you ain't got a job, you know exactly what you needed to get money. So you'll borrow a gun from your friend, and you'll rob a store, because nothing can ever go wrong from doing that. And even though you know nothing about guns, you think you got it all figured out. Until all of a sudden, everything that you thought was going to happen turned terribly wrong, and you take a life. Can you imagine? Can you imagine sitting in front of the judge as that gavel hits hard, echoing 25 to life? Because somehow, some way, there's still hope for you, even though you do believe that you should be sitting on death row. But, okay. Can you imagine sitting in your cell, 19 years old, and the echoes of those cold concrete walls, of all the fear and anger and resentment and sadness, echo from the fathers, brothers, uncles, grandpas prior? And now you get to lend to those. Can you imagine every single day you fight to get back to your cell and make it one more day? Because this is your new world, and this is exactly where you belong. And can you imagine finding an opportunity to do something different, which is play sports, because that's what everybody else is doing, and go along to get along? And you start to learn that failure can mean success. It's just a grind, and it's not something that you understand, but yet you do it because, again, you go along to get along. Can you imagine somebody coming up to you and saying, hey, your story's powerful. Would you mind working with at-risk youth? And you say to yourself, well, we can continue to get high in prison and basically die there, or you can start to work with others, share your story, and maybe make a change. Well, you know what? I think we'll go this way. But first you need to work on you, because you're a train wreck. And you can imagine all the demons and all the monsters that reside within, because that didn't go away. And so you spend the next 5 years hammering on all of that, and it is an absolute mess. And yet you still grind it out, because you know that you don't want to die here. And you do want to stop the next youngster from making the same mistakes. And can you imagine doing that year after year after year after year, helping those others get out and stay out, until one day, 32 and a half years later, you are introduced to that gate, and you're introduced to freedom. You walk out into a world you no longer know. You walk out to a freedom that you embrace for the first time, because even though as a youngster you were free, you weren't really free. You were in a cage. And even though you had the key, you didn't know how to use it. So yes, you embrace freedom like you've never done anything before. And you say to yourself, we were going to do this. All the stuff that you've practiced, you're going to put into action. And you're going to work with the community. You're going to add value to the youngsters' lives. You're going to do what you have to do in order to make change, because everything seems like it's in a train wreck. Or you can get high and go back to prison and die. Very black and white, just like the day you stood there and you asked yourself, do we add value or do we die? Thank you.
I want to open with, I love Idaho. I really do. My first value is my faith. On September 3rd, 2007, my husband and I pulled into the tiny town of Hagerman. In a large U-Haul, 4 kids, my adult brother, and a dog. We had just lost our home in California. During this time, some church friends caught wind of the situation we were going through, and they called us and they invited us to bring our kids up to church camp. They were gonna camp at Anderson Dam for a week. So you could think, like, okay, our marriage was on the rocks, we were stressed out, and they just said, come, get up here and we'll have some fun. You guys can talk. It could have possibly been our last vacation as a whole family. And boy, was it good. Little did we know God had a plan for us. While camping, we fell in love with the people, the beauty, and the pace of life. My husband and I talked, and before we even made a decision to move, he had already had a job offer. And about a week after we returned home, we got a call from our friends and said, we have a house for you to rent. A wonderful lady was going to allow us to move into her home. No background check, no security deposit. She never even met us. But she based her decision on the people that we met at church camp. Who does that? You know, not today anymore. But we decided to take the leap of faith, and after 3 garage sales and making $1,500, we moved in our new life. We got to our home, and this is where my faith comes in, because this is where I know God had a plan for us. Our cupboards were stocked. Our new friends left us coolers full of meat, and such a warm welcome into the community. God provided for us, down to the penny of what we needed. What could have been our biggest devastation turned out to be one of God's biggest triumphs in our lives. In California, we didn't even know our neighbors. We didn't know their names. Our new community became God's hand and feet in our life in such a scary time. They showed us a different way of life, how to love, how to share, how to take care of your neighbor, and that community really mattered. When I say God is good, yes, he is. But we jumped in with both feet. We started serving our new community. We had an opportunity to open a restaurant for about a year that spun into a taco truck. We had a second chance at home ownership here in Twin Falls. Matthew 6:26 says, "Look at the birds of the air, for they neither plant nor harvest nor store food in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you far more valuable than the birds?" Yes, we are. My second value is my family. I love my family, and we love each other very much. But as I was preparing, why value my family, I was convicted. I was going to say, oh, okay, they're struggling, they can't make their bills, what everyone else's kids are going through too. But God convicted my heart to share what's really truly going on in my family. We are a house divided. Today's polarized times, the division through social media propaganda, censored speech, culture wars, my family no longer is in unity. My oldest and I, we are opposite on our ideas about God and politics. He and I have had some pretty spirited discussions that has driven an unfamiliar wedge in a once open talks. Now, my husband, He's a Mexican American. And another one of my kids told me one day he was ashamed of being white. And I said, what? I'm that part of you. My youngest son shared a couple years ago that if it wasn't for me and his dad, he didn't want to be alive no more. There's no point. He didn't see any unity. He didn't see see a purpose to living. And we're a close family. What was going on? What's going on, you know? I just watched a Progressive insurance commercial, and it said, "Are you afraid of being your parents?" And it encouraged the actor, "Don't be like your dad." And it showed the dad grilling with an apron that said, "Grills just want to have fun." You know, kind of like that dorky white dad. It was meant to be funny, but if you really look deeper into the message of that thing, it was having him look down on his parents. That's just one example. The tools being used to wage a moral and mental war on us and our kids are very cunning and very subtle. Now, our future right now, who knows? The American dream is no longer in reach for my kids. They can't even see past their bills tomorrow, let alone dream about a future. A nation divided cannot stand, but we shall stand because we have the chance to change our minds. We have the power to change the way we are with people, the way we love people. We need to look towards things that we have in common instead of things that we have different. Now, no matter what happens in the next couple months, we're still going to be family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, and members of this community. We will need to come together, one act, an encouraging word, and one authentic conversation at a time. Let's continue to listen to one another and learn from one another. Thank you for listening.
I have been asked to talk about a value. The value I chose that strikes to my heart is strong masculine men. I was raised active LDS, so I have had a lot of values that I was taught that are strong Judeo-Christian values, and they are good. They are all biblically and scripturally based, even though I was taught them, I didn't always choose to follow them. One in particular, I got a young lady pregnant at the age of 20. By the time I was 21, I was married, divorced. What a great way to start off your 20s. I got remarried when I was 26 and have since had 3 wonderful children. And I've been married for 11 years. It has not been easy, but it has been rewarding and fruitful. The reason I'm choosing to talk about this value is how important it has become to me and the society around me. Each generation and man has to discover this at some point. Through adversity and struggle, I have learned this for myself, and I am choosing to share some of this story with you this evening. In The Wizard of Oz, you have a lion who is a coward and hopes the wizard will give him courage. I too have failed to have courage to do what is right and stand up for what is right. Those experiences are very personal and embarrassing and sometimes discouraging and don't build much self-confidence. Just like in The Wizard of Oz, life has given me experiences to have courage. I have taken advantage of them. One in particular was one evening after I was divorced. I went to hang out with some old friends. There was some immoral things going on, and I wasn't very comfortable. I thought to myself, this is not the man I want to be. I have a son, and I shouldn't be here. So I mustered up the courage and left. That was confidence building and encouraging. Quote, men need to grow up because the world needs powerful men and because women need powerful men. Men's power is something that they have to offer the world and also something in which they find meaning and dignity. Unquote. Dr. Peterson. One thing in particular that brings meaning to a man's life is his family. Those years between my divorce and my marriage to Samantha had some meaning, like my son Weston. This responsibility helped keep me grounded, and I tell him this. Once Samantha and I were married, we started on this journey. In today's society, there is a lot of talk about men and their need and role. I am very traditionally based, and I believe that the gender role of a man has been hijacked. I am not the tyrant, but I am also not a pushover. The process of finding that balance has been interesting. My divorce and Samantha's background also made this interesting. Me trying to be a masculine leader sometimes came across as a dictator, and sometimes it was not too far off, but most of the time I was genuine. Quote, you have to be a monster and learn how to control it, by Dr. Peterson. If you can be a monster, then you can learn to recognize what a monster is. You can see monsters around you. But if you learn how to control it, you can help others also. Am I capable of being a tyrannical monster? Yes, I am. Am I capable of controlling it? Yes, I am. There comes a seriously real responsibility as a man and husband to make sure you are being genuine, honest with yourself, your wife, and your family. But when I do, there is nothing greater of reward knowing that I am leading in the right way. Now, am I perfect? No. I still bounce off the sides, but with a little patience and understanding, we keep moving forward. Quote, he who has a sword and knows how to use it, but knows when to keep it sheathed. Dr. Peterson. Now, is being a strong masculine man an attack on Samantha and her strong femininity? No. We complement each other. One example of this is disciplining the children, especially little boys. They are not afraid to challenge her or test her, and trust me, they do. But there is a level of fear and respect for the old man. They rarely test me and challenge me. This is not a trait to be used or abused, but respected. This helps shape little boys into men and helps teach them to respect her. I find great meaning and dignity in being the man of the house. I find fulfillment in bearing the responsibility of my wife and kids. I have a purpose. Men without purpose struggle to find meaning. Marriage is like a swing dance. You have a partner. One has to lead and one has to follow. You cannot swing without this. A strong, masculine man craves to lead. He wants to lead. He can't dance very well with his wife if she doesn't choose to let him lead. And this is an attack on her. It complements her, and it doesn't take anything away from her. She still has a say in the dance. This is one part that I feel like has been hijacked. It is not demeaning to her to let me lead. It takes everyday stresses of providing, protecting off of her plate and lets her worry about the kids. I believe God designed us this way. I have everything in me to fight the evils of the world. Strong men protect their families and their society from the things that want to destroy it. We keep the wolves at bay. I value strong masculine men. There is a need for strong masculine men. There is a need for women to encourage and support strong masculine men. Men, teach your sons to be strong masculine men. Teach your daughters to support and encourage strong masculine men. Without them, historically, societies collapse and fall into chaos. I encourage every man that is looking for purpose and meaning in his life to find Dr. Jordan Peterson online and listen to some of his lectures. They helped me. Thank you for listening.
My journey that has led me here has not been the easiest, but certainly has humbled me through my experiences growing up in Los Angeles, California. Growing up in a single parent household with 3 siblings, we were exposed to several situations that most youth should not be exposed to. No fault to my mother. My mother would take care of several kids in the block to try to make ends meet. Unfortunately, by the time that I was 15 years old, I had witnessed a drive-by shooting in front of my house. Police were called out and spent the whole night in my front yard as a person died due to the injuries. From that moment on, I knew that law enforcement was something that interested me. So in the next few days, my older sister had a friend that was part of a Police Explorer program with the local police department. One day, I had the courage to go up to him at school and ask him how I can join. My sister's friend told me to show up at this location at this time and be prepared to work out. Little did I know what was ahead of me. The day I showed up, I was excited. I got ready. And since I was growing up in Los Angeles, California, my mom was poor, we were poor. We had no way of transportation. So I had to walk 2 miles to the police department and 2 miles back. When I showed up, I met the detective that was running the Explorers program, and he began to tell me what paperwork was needed in order for me to participate. Obviously, as I did not complete the paperwork, I was not allowed to participate. And plus, my mother was not able to afford the fees that were going to be associated with me joining. You know, being young, it was hard for me to hear a no, especially when I wanted to do something or buy something. Oftentimes, after soccer practice, I would see my friends buy Powerades with money that their parents had given them. I would always see my friends' parents show up to their soccer game, and after every game, they would get in their car and all drive off as a family while I walked home. You know, as I kept seeing this, I would always think to myself, you know, what would it be like if I had my father in my life to show me basic life skills such as driving? What would my life be like if my father would just be present? You know, I did not let these thoughts dictate what my life would be, as my mother would always try her best to give us the best she could. My mother would frequently remind us that school was important and to push ourselves to become someone in this future. My mother would always tell me not to use the excuse that because I did not have a father, I did not know right from wrong. After the drive-by shooting I had seen in front of my house, my mom was always uneasy when it got dark and the streetlights came on. After several months of deliberation, my mother made the decision to leave what she knew and moved all 4 of us to Idaho in 2009, where all my dad's family had just moved to. Once I was in Idaho, I began to work construction with my cousin, making decent money, but still had the ambition of law enforcement. Once in college, I would frequently see several people in my class wear blue BDUs with some sort of patch. One day I had the courage to ask them what they were wearing. Luckily, this person was nice enough and tell me where to go and began to guide me where to sign up for the law enforcement program. After completing the program, I got a job with the police department, with the Twin Falls Police Department, where I'd been for the last 10 years. After working several years in the patrol division, I decided to become a school resource officer. In the first couple of months that I was in the schools, it was kind of eye-opening because I was involved with different students involving their families. And I started to see students that were dealing with addiction, domestic violence at home, mental health, emotional support, suicidal ideations. And I took a step back because I thought back to my own childhood in high school. I was going through the exact same situations. I remember one incident, a student walks in my office and says, "Hey officer, can I talk to you?" I always left my door open for students to come in and feel safe. The student began to tell me that her mom is suffering from cancer and that she was a care provider for her mother. She was not doing so well in school and wanted to harm herself to get away from the pain that she was feeling. During the whole conversation, I stayed quiet and let the student express how she truly felt and slowly began to conversate with her about the resources available to her. The more I talked to the families, it opened my eyes that I needed to change my mindset because a lot of families are not asking for solutions, but needed someone to listen to so what they were saying and listen to what they were really asking of me. After being in the schools for 2 years, I decided to return to the patrol division to seek other career aspirations. As my kids get older and they start playing sports, I noticed that they require more of my time and attention. My son and daughter played spring sports and at times played at the same time. One day, my daughter had a school event that was not required for us to attend as a family. She asked if we were going, and I told her no, that it wasn't required for us to go. She looked at me and kept telling me she wanted to go. Once again, I did not want to go. My wife looked at me and said, "I know you don't want to go, but remember how you felt growing up and not being able to attend those events." At that point in time, everything came in full circle. I had lost my mother 2 years ago, and it reminded me that when I was younger and how important it felt to have a parent present. Here I am dealing with families and kids and always talking to them and preaching to them how important family is. Yet here in front of my eyes, I am doing the complete opposite. I was isolating myself from myself, focusing on work and not spending quality time with my family. So I really had to change my focus on raising my kids, and I did that by making sure I was always there for them whenever they have something going on. I didn't care if it was sports, school, anything they had going on. I make sure I leave work, and I am there for each one of them. I might not be there the whole time because I have to take the other to practice, but they see my face, and they appreciate that. As I get older, I'm still learning how to become a father. As I get older, I also want to be able to teach values, social skills, and teach my kids how to navigate this world.
When I was first approached about speaking for this event, my first thought was, fudge. But for any of you who have seen A Christmas Story, that might not have been the particular F word that I used at that time. I'll give you some fair warning that there may be some other F-bombs dropped this afternoon. For example, faith, family, friends. These are 3 incredible words of things that I value in my life. Both family and friends are characterized by love, support, communication, trust, shared values. We share our troubles, our failures, our heartbreaks, and we celebrate our joys and successes. We have our birth family, and we have our chosen family of friends. For all intents and purposes, I'll combine the two and speak only about faith and family. These are the loved ones who we choose to spend our time with. My mother struggled her entire life, both financially and physically. She went through 2 divorces and had 4 children by the time she was 24 years old. I'm the youngest of 4. As a single mom, my mother had to work a lot to try and make ends meet, and was often working and gone weeknights and weekends. What that meant for us as children is that we were frequently left home alone, unsupervised, to fend for ourselves. We lacked structure, and dinner was not something we sat down to often as a family. Often, there just wasn't any dinner at all. Sorry, here comes more F words. When the average person thinks about getting together with family and friends, we usually gather around food, fun, and fellowship, not unlike what we're doing right now. As I look forward to Thanksgiving and Christmas, because it was always the time when extended family would gather together, grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins, I never missed out on not having a father growing up because I never knew what that meant to not have one. How can you miss something that you've never known and never had in your life? It wasn't until I was a little bit older that I began to fully understand what I'd been missing and what not having a father had, what kind of impact not having a father in my life had on me. I had no idea that soon I would have a father in my life, only he would never leave me. One summer day, when I was around 10 years old, my neighbor and best friend came running up to me, all excited. She had a flyer in her hand and she showed it to me, and it was for Vacation Bible School, and she said, "You should come too." I really had no idea at that time what VBS meant, but I soon found out that it included food, fun, and friends, and song. It sounded great to me, and I was all in. Happy campers, Bible treasure hunts, Bible heroes, putting on the armor of God. These are all just a few examples of names of Vacation Bible School camp titles. What young child wouldn't want to have fun with their friends and get to eat and play games and sing songs? That seed in me had been planted. Church began as fun, but after that first summer, I found myself climbing onto the church bus every single Wednesday for youth group and every Sunday for Sunday school and church for years to follow. Church became an integral part of my life and who I was becoming. Church had become part of my family. Or better yet, I should say, I became a part of the church family. I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior when I was 11 years old at youth summer camp. I was now a child of God, and I had a heavenly Father. He lives in my heart, and he's with me wherever I go. And that day, my life changed forever. Here in my newfound faith, I became a part of the family of God, with brothers and sisters in Christ. I continued to attend church on my own all the way through high school. When I was 17, during my senior year, I enlisted into the United States Air Force, and I continued to serve my country for the next 21 years. Now I had yet another family, my military family. Now I had a band of brothers and sisters all serving by my side. It was a unique experience to be able to be exposed at such a young age to people from all walks of life. All came with their own stories and struggles, with different backgrounds, experiences, and reasons for joining the military. The military is a little bit like New York City, one giant melting pot. All colors, races, creeds, nationalities, and ethnicities. Out of my 21 years in the service, 10 of them were served in Europe. Europe is so much more progressive and accepting of everybody and their diversity than America is, which is a shame. I felt incredibly blessed. My faith became a part of who I was as an airman in the United States Air Force. While in the Air Force, I served as a chaplain's assistant. Basically, what that meant is that we did everything to run the chapel except for preach and counsel. We weren't assigned to one particular chaplain unless we were deployed. Servicemen and women overseas don't have the opportunity to just go down the street and attend the church of their choosing. Most likely, the base chapel is the only place where they could go to worship. On any given weekend, I would set up for approximately 10 different worship services. Jewish, Catholic, LDS, Episcopal, Messianic, Islam, Protestant, Gospel, Traditional, you name it. I would put out the menorah, take it down, put out the crucifix, pull it back, and put out the cross. And that went on for all the different services that we were able to set up for. What the military and my job taught me was tolerance, acceptance, appreciation for others and their beliefs. The belief in a higher power, whether that's the same higher power I believe in or otherwise. I didn't and don't have to share their beliefs to love them as human beings. The worship was as diverse as the people who were attending the worship. One hot, humid, sticky night on the coast of Oman, I found myself walking along the barbed wire fence. You could smell the salt from the sea, feel the fine grit of salt and sand on your skin, and taste the salt on your lips. I paused to look at the flight line as planes were taking off in rapid succession. As soon as the planes had disappeared into the night sky, it became very silent, eerily so. The call to prayer went off in all the minarets around me. The Adhan, or the call to prayer, is an announcement and a reminder for Muslims to stop their daily activities and focus on their faith. As I stood there, I paused to say prayers of my own. For our country, for our safety, for all who I call family. Faith differences aside, how cool is that to be reminded daily to bow your head in prayer? Fast forward 19 years. Over the past 2 decades since my military retirement, I have feared. My footsteps have faltered. I have faced financial hardship. I have lost close family members and my military family, and I have failed. But I've never lost my faith. Faith in my God, faith in humanity, and faith in my future. I would ask that during your times of joy and celebration, your times of sorrow and hardship, take heart. Even when you feel that all have failed you and you have nothing left, but fall to your knees, never give up. Look to your left and look to your right. Look around you. Don't be afraid to stretch out your hand to friends or family in your time of need and your time of joy. Most of all, don't forget to look up and have faith.
Today, I want to talk to you about the transformative power of empathy and how it has shaped my life, my career in agriculture, and my commitment to communities both near and far. Anyone that knows me knows that I've always had a deep-seated love for animals and a passion for agriculture. This passion led me to pursue a degree in animal science production management and agriculture business, setting the stage for my career. However, my journey was not without its challenges. I was a female working in a man's dairy world. After working as a herdsman for 2 years in Washington, I found myself at a crossroads. I needed to find a new direction, which brought me to Idaho to work in a laboratory-focused agriculture applications and milk quality job. However, as life would have it, the laboratory I was working for suddenly closed down the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Faced with uncertainty and driven by my desire to continue serving dairies and farms, I tapped into my sense of empathy. I thought about the farmers I worked for, families who relied on healthy livestock and sustainable practices to provide for their loved ones. It was this understanding of their struggles that fueled my decision to start my own laboratory, leading to the creation of DairyWise Laboratory Services. At DairyWise, I strive to be more than just a testing facility. I have positioned my team as a support system for local farmers, helping them navigate their challenges and ensuring their animals' health. Through empathy, I learned that listening to farmers' problems and understanding their perspectives allows us to provide tailored solutions that not only address immediate needs, but also contribute to long-term sustainability. Whether it's testing milk quality, providing forage analysis, or offering on-farm consulting, our services are driven by a commitment to uplift those who dedicate their lives to agriculture. However, my journey with empathy extends beyond my professional life. I became involved in an organization called Bandera Farmers Network International, an organization focused on empowering communities in Africa, particularly in Uganda. During my recent visit to the Kamuli district, I witnessed firsthand the challenges faced by local farmers and their children, many of whom struggled to access education and just essential resources. It was at this moment that I truly grasped the importance of being empathetic to the needs of others. When I arrived in Kamuli, I was instantly greeted and surrounded by the children, their joy evident as they welcomed visitors. They showed me around their school, they danced, they sang, while sharing stories of how their families worked tirelessly to provide an education for them. One grandmother, who was taking care of her grandchildren, shared her heartfelt story of how Bandera had helped get her grandchildren into school instead of forcing them into early marriage. At that moment, I felt a profound realization wash over me. If there was something I could do, I was going to do it to help these children. I recognized that I was taking my own life for granted. I had a vehicle, I had food and access to food, and having a roof over my head every day. I realized that just one coffee, one meal, could fund a child going to school for a whole month. This understanding reinforced my commitment to making a difference. Working with Bandera, we aim to not only educate the children of farmers, but also empower their families to build sustainable livelihoods. My work in establishing a nonprofit here in the US in Idaho to support this cause stems from a deep understanding that every child deserves the chance for an education and every family deserves the opportunity for prosperity. It is through empathy that we can create genuine connections and drive impactful change. In my everyday life, empathy drives how I interact with family and friends as well. I strive to be present and attentive to their needs, whether offering a listening ear during tough times or celebrating their successes. I have found that empathy strengthens bonds and fosters an environment where people feel cared for and supported. As I reflect on my journey, I realize that empathy is not just about feelings for others. It is about taking informed action. It inspires me to develop my skills further and to seek solutions that address the deeper issues our communities face, both locally and globally. So why is empathy so powerful? Because it ignites my desire to help. It pushes me to reach out, support others, and take meaningful action that creates ripples of change. My experience in agriculture, my laboratory work, my involvement with Bandera Farmers Network International, and my daily interactions with loved ones all reinforce this powerful lesson. When we lead with empathy, we pave the way for understanding, cooperation, and a lasting impact. Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts on the power of empathy today. Let's continue to foster understanding in our communities and dedicate ourselves to lifting one another up, because together we can create a brighter future for all.
Thank you for spending these next 7 minutes with me. I want to begin by acknowledging and honoring my ancestors who whisper guidance to my spirit, and whose presence I can trace in my veins. I am both a guest in these indigenous lands, and I cherish the privilege to be granted citizenship in these United States. What do I value most? What do I value most in this life? I've meditated on this over the last couple of months, and I keep arriving at another question, and that is, how do I even know what I value most? I mean, really value, not the conditioned, spiritual, social, collective values I've inherited and downloaded over my lifetime, like family, faith, motherhood, recycling. But beneath the surface of my daily living, of my daily doing, what do I value most? I discovered that what I value most is what puts tears in my eyes. Life moments that put tears in my eyes. We all have these. Tears of joy, tears of sadness, tears of awe, tears of intense laughter, tears of loss. I've had many of those. Loss of safety, loss of country, loss of loved ones, loss of my humanity, my dignity, loss of my identity. All of this after surviving war and genocide. Loss of language, loss of the ability to speak and be understood after resettling to a new country and having to learn a new language. Loss of the air in my lungs and my consciousness after drowning in a river as a child. All that loss I experienced by age 10. The ethnic violence in the aftermath of the Soviet Union's collapse and my family's escape was traumatically life-altering. But it was the moment when I felt water flood and replace the air in my lungs, struggling to reach the surface to catch my breath, and drowning, that ripped away the illusion of life real quick. I remember as a child feeling fragile for the first time, remembering and becoming aware of temporariness of life, of my own life. Loss helped me gain reverence for living and to savor each present moment. Life is not permanent. Things and people go away. The hardest part of life is, in fact, living through loss. Rather than allowing that which puts tears in my eyes to flood my heart and spirit, I've integrated it into utility, into creativity, compassion, humor, and I serve it back into the world. 17 years ago, I moved back to Twin Falls, and I took the most irrational risk of my life, like all small business owners do, and I opened Ooh La La Boutique, a woman's consignment boutique. Ooh La La is not a store, it's our story. Consignment is about love. Love for sustainability, love for earth, love for womanhood, love for community. The exchange of clothing is this exchange of love. But the fashion world isn't always fabulous. It's raw and it's real, and it will put tears in your eyes. I've dressed women for their wedding, their daughters for their prom, and then I've dressed them for that same daughter's funeral. We help families part with sentimental clothing left behind by their departed. We transform wardrobes during sensitive weight gain and weight loss due to chronic illness. Women liquidate what they own to finance their survival during hardships in times of divorce, addiction, domestic violence, or losing their job. I am mindful that we dress people for life moments that put tears in their eyes. I see our clients in their full humanity because I know what it's like to lose mine. For me, what other people struggle with, it is never political. It is their livelihood. And people's livelihoods are not up for debate. It's personal. It's not policy. It can feel very vulnerable to trust a stranger to dress you. I listen to people. I hear what they share. I hear what they don't share, and I hold that silence with them. People's bodies tell their stories, their scars, their reconstructive surgeries, their tribute tattoos. They echo their lived experiences. Clothing, like words, are an expression of speech. I tell my children all the time, words create worlds. I've lived in worlds where words were violent, and I've lived in worlds where words are fun and joking. The words we leave behind, including our silence, is our language legacy. What we say to people outlives us. It's what they remember. I value what puts tears in my eyes, and I can trace it through my spiritual, my personal, and my professional life. It washes out my eyes so I can see the blessings more clearly. It brings me closer to the Creator. It reminds me of the fragile and sacred trust we have through our interdependence on one another. That everyone is seeking refuge from something in their life, even if they are not refugees. And to treasure each temporary moment in life, the variety of people we meet and who orbit us, and the very last frontier to be conquered, which is human-to-human empathy.
Could all the speakers join me up here, please? All 8 of you. Okay, you can be as loud as you want.